Ladies, gentlemen, and Haradrim of all ages, there's a pretty massive new bug going on in Diablo 4 that you may as well be using while it exists because, well, everyone else is going to be, and it honestly probably won't be around for very long. Specifically, this is a bug with the Elixir of Antivenin, a unique elixir unlocked through a side quest in Quill that gives you bonus maximum life and poison resistance as well. This has been the source of some other issues in the past, but right now it is worse than it's ever been, as instead of giving you 15% bonus maximum life, as it states that it will, it seems to be giving you about over 3,000% bonus maximum life, or somewhere around there, as my stagnant standing in town max life jumps from around 13,500 up to over 420,000 life just from drinking this potion and nothing else. Simple as that. Obviously, this makes survivability a non-factor in the entire game, but any build that can scale damage off of maximum life, which specifically applies to any overpower based build commonly found on Barbarians, Necromancers, and Druid, but then also just literally all Spiritborn builds, as this directly funnels into the well-known Viscous Shield bug that gives you infinitely scaling bonus damage converted from your maximum life number 2. So Spiritborn has just entered nuclear overdrive here, especially the overpower Spiritborn builds, which already were the strongest. My proper pit push Quill Volley build that doesn't even have perfect gear yet is hitting over 15 quintillion and clearing pit tier 150 in no time flat. And the point is, this is a massive bug, and one that at the midway point of the season that most people were pretty much done with playing the season anyways, is honestly just a bit of extra fun before we trail off. One last hurrah, a bit of ridiculous power fantasy to end on. All that said, let's talk about where to get these elixirs and unlock the recipe, what it takes to farm them, and how to do it reasonably easily. And with this in mind, we may as well finally go over my proper pit-pushing Spiritborn build too, as there have been a lot of developments to the sort of high-end version of Quill Volley over the last few weeks that I'd be happy to touch on and talk about here too. And of course, it goes hand in hand with this bug, as Quill Volley itself focuses heavily on overpowers, which also scale with your maximum life on top of Viscous Shield itself, so that's why it just shoots off into the stratosphere for this. But for the sake of showing it, even my Razor Wings build can smoothly and easily cruise through a tier 135 pit and hit numbers above 100 quadrillion just by adding this elixir into it with no other changes, so it really is just a big deal. As for how to get it then, you want to pick up the side quest Pinch of Poison in Quill, the southwestern main city. It will ask you to collect some venomous glands from some scorpions, so you want to go and do that. Then once you have, come back and hand it in, and you will get the recipe to unlock the Antivenin elixir. If you then go to the alchemist, this recipe will be under quest elixirs. It costs Angel's Breath to craft, it also costs emerald fragments, both of which can come from infernal hordes in pretty reasonable amounts, and then just the standard bundled herbs, which are generally best farmed by picking up Subo as your main mercenary in the den, and then just wandering around the open world looking for the herb nodes that he lights up on your minimap. With that covered then, let's talk about Pit Push Overpower Quill Volley, which is honestly just so powerful that calling it Pit Push Quill Volley is sort of disingenuous, because it just does such ridiculous damage that it trivializes every other bit of content in the game as well. It just also happens to be the best pit pushing build that we have too. As we've talked about Quill Volley a load of times, this isn't really a build video entirely, so much as just a recommendation of a way for players with potentially relatively average gear to be able to complete a tier 150 pit while the bug is a thing. But also because this is a big enough bug that it may well get fixed sooner rather than later, it is worth mentioning this is still the best pit pushing Spiritborn build regardless of that elixir. The bug just happens to lean into a stat that the build already wants regardless, which is maximum life. So whether it gets fixed or not, this is still what you would want to use if you're aiming to hit a tier 150 pit before the end of the season. As a result of all this, I'll show you everything here and what I've got, but I won't spend anywhere as much time explaining it as I normally would. Here is your skill tree. We of course have to spend 2 points in the basic skill cluster to unlock cores. We pick up Quill Volley, of course, as well as all of its ranks, the relevant enhancements as well, and then some passives in the cluster that give us relevant boosts too. We take Vortex to help us group up enemies and make them easy to take down en masse, especially as we are using the Fell Soothsayer aspect, which makes enemies explode when they die for a portion of the damage that killed them. This can cause a massive just domino effect on close enemies, so this is a really powerful skill. We take Ravager as well as for extra hits to help with both Jaguar primary Spirit Hull procs and for building up passives like the Potent passive. Then we take some more useful passives in this cluster as well. We'll then be grabbing 3 ranks of Armored Hide in the next cluster here, as it's just sort of the right amount, the correct amount, in perfect gear at least, to hit easy 100% uptime on the skill. We then grab Scourge specifically through to Adaptable Scourge for bonus damage to crowd-controlled enemies, and then lifesteal as well. Then we take some more passives in this cluster as well. After that, we're going to be taking just, again, a bunch of passives, this time in the Potency Cluster 2 for bonus maximum life, bonus damage with Eagle skills related to actual movement speed, and bonus stacking with Jaguar skills every time that you do damage to an enemy, as well as bonus critical damage per stack of ferocity you have too. Then we have our ultimate skill cluster here, and we'll of course be taking the Hunter, the Jaguar Ultimate. We take its enhancements as well, and this is mainly just a way to fill and then also overfill our ferocity stacks. This gives us bonus damage to injured enemies, and it also gives us frequently usable self-resetting ultimate to trigger the resolution passive for a bunch of bonus damage here, as well as the supremacy passive for stacking bonus damage in general. Then for your key passive, it's Prodigy's Tempo quite clearly, as Rod of Kapaleke makes Quill Volley count as both a basic and core skill, so spamming it both raises all skill ranks and reduces cooldowns dramatically when you do. For our Spirit Hull choices then, we have Double Jaguar, both for managing our ferocity stacks and for the absolute insanity that is the Jaguar primary Spirit Hull and what it's capable of reaching with just all the different double dipping effects going on with the class right now. Then we of course have our equipment, and the ideal version of this build for perfect gear uses only 3 uniques, but one of them is a mythic, which is the Shroud of False Death. This is just really strong. It gives you a big pile of maximum life, as well as +1 rank to all passives, which is a lot of extra offense and defense too. We have the Rod of Kapaleke, which enables a ton of the functionality of the setup to begin with, not to mention the ridiculous scaling of the unique effect that it has too, and the general strength of the affixes that are on the weapon to begin with. Then we also have the Banished Lord's Talisman to transfer this into a ton of bonus overpowers guaranteed as well, giving us way more maximum life too, and attack speed and other bonuses as well as that too. I'm hovering over each piece of gear here so that you can see what mine currently looks like, with the main changes that I would make just being more of a masterworking focus on the maximum resolve stacks on the helmet, as otherwise, especially in combination with the Antivenin elixir, the resilience ranks on the pants are actually a really big bonus that are quite nice to have. Pretty much as a whole, this whole setup lets you play around planes power circles, so somehow an enemy does live longer than half a second while they're fighting you, you'll proc a lucky hit circle that gives you just a dramatic damage increase as well, and then they all just sort of fall like a trail of dominoes if even a single enemy dies within a pack of them. As for Paragon, here is my board then. I've got the Colossal Glyph in the starter board. You don't need the additive bonus from this at all, so you don't really want to put too many points in this area, but the multiplier that is bonus damage per resolve stack is very good. Then we attach on the Viscous Shield board for the absolute buggy ridiculousness that is the damage increase that is the Viscous Shield node itself, especially stacking with the Antivenin elixir's bugged max life increase while that lasts. Inside of this board we have the Fulminate Glyph for a bunch of bonus lightning damage. Then we have the Sapping board attached on the right here for bonus damage while spamming skills of the same base Guardian, which of course Quill Volley does count for. Inside of this board as well, we'll be putting the Hubris Glyph, mostly because it boosts all the magic nodes in the radius, which includes all of the bonus maximum resource magic nodes, which gives us a bunch of bonus damage, as your damage and your critical damage multiplier with the Rod of Kapaleke scales with the amount of resource that you spend when you spend all your resource, so the higher maximum resource, the more damage you do. Then we go back over here to the top of the Viscous Shield board and attach on the Revealing board. This gives you a lucky hit chance to knock down vulnerable enemies, and also gives you a bunch of bonus damage to crowd-controlled enemies too. Then we go back over to the Sapping board, and on top of this we attach the Convergence board. This gives you a bunch of bonus damage dependent on your highest damage with specific element stats. We gain a bunch of damage with lightning from our Fulminate Glyph from earlier, so this gives us its maximum bonus of 30% general damage increase. Inside of this board we also have the Spirit Glyph for a bunch of increased critical strike damage as an additive, as well as a just increasing damage buff to an enemy every time that you critically strike them. Then we go back into the Revealing board from the upper side here through the Convergence board, and inside of the final glyph socket we stick the Ritual Glyph, which gives you a bunch of extra Mystic Circle potency, boosting the effect of the Plains Power aspect, and this also gives you bonus damage and survivability while you're standing inside of a Mystic Circle too. Putting it mildly, this is the most broken build in the entire game. It has a large number of bugged interactions or unintentional double dipping that happens here that just make you get white numbers larger than they have any right to be, larger than the game even really knows how to calculate, honestly. Even after they change damage numbers to pop up smaller than they do before, now having little numbers to indicate their actual size, I can still get 2 commas in a number with no problem, and that's after the T that stands for trillion. This was already busted as all hell before. It was the strongest build for pushing pits in general, but the addition of the Antivenin elixir bug just breaks it completely, really, and makes it so you don't even need a perfect build anymore to do a tier 1 PFD pit in sub 5 minutes. It's simple as that. That just about does it for today then, everyone. Just a discussion about the newest major bug hitting Diablo 4, and honestly how ridiculous it is that something like this can just pop up out of nowhere, and of course the silly results that this bug can have, as well as the best Spiritborn Spiritborn build to take advantage of it while it lasts if you're interested in experiencing a pit tier 150 but haven't had the gear to do so up to this point. And again, just to really make it clear, if and when they do fix this Antivenin elixir bug, the build is still totally worth using. It is the best pit pushing option that Spiritborn has. I hope you've all enjoyed this and I hope you enjoy using this build if you try it out too. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.